President renovates 25 tanks in Trincomalee. Customs officials who inspected the sugar container carrying cocaine transferred. Minister Kabir Hashim points a finger at the previous government for the drug racket. Minister Field Marshal Sarath Fonseca responds to an allegation levelled against him. Dinesh Chandimal hospitalised after contracting pneumonia. A very good evening to you and welcome to Primetime News, coming to you live and direct from the Newsfirst studios here in Colombo. I'm Krishan Devasagayam.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Let's start off with a look at your top story for tonight. The 25th tank reconstructed in the Trincomalee district was vested in the public today by President Maithripala Sirisena.
The Gangtalawa Unit 12 tank in Kantale, which was reconstructed under the Siri Sarapivisuma program, which falls under the direct supervision of the President, was vested in the public today. The Siri Sarapivisuma program is a 3-year plan to reconstruct tanks, develop roads, build electric fences and develop educational and medical facilities in the Trincomalee district. A total of 5 billion rupees has been allocated for the project through the President's office. Of the 1 billion rupees allocated for the year, over 200 million was spent on reconstructing 25 tanks in the district.
මගේ ප්‍රතිපත්තිය නම් මහා යෝධ ව්‍යාපෘති මේ රටේ ඇති කිරීම නෙවෙයි.
My policy is not to create mega projects in the country. Every government has different priorities in accordance to their economic outlook. However, when considering our historic foundation and agricultural background, what I want to do is to strengthen the national economy based on an agricultural society.
A ceremony was also held to hand over tractors, bowsers, trailers and SUVs to the engineering corps of the Sri Lanka Army to be used in the development project. President Sirisena also took part in distributing awards to those who excelled in the field of local food production. 48 farmers were honoured at the occasion.
None of the other leaders have ever done something like this by coming into our villages.
As residents of the Unit 11 and 12 areas in Gantalawa, we thank the President for preparing a carpet road for our farmers to travel to this tank. This is a dream for us.
Back then, we tried to organize our communities to reconstruct this tank. However, now we have received a huge boost. We are very happy because they have renovated this tank for us.
The road to Salyapura was in a state where we couldn't even use a bicycle on that road. Today it has been carpeted. This is a great deed on behalf of these area residents. The customs officers who inspected the cargo container which contained cocaine have been transferred and investigations have been launched. Now this is according to customs media spokesperson Sunil Jayaratna. Meanwhile, the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court has granted approval for the Police Anti-Narcotics Bureau to question the 7 suspects arrested in connection to the drug bust under detention orders.
218.6 kilograms of cocaine valued at 3.2 billion rupees were discovered in a sugar container which originated from Brazil. Newsfirst asked Sunil Jayaratna, media spokesperson of Sri Lanka Customs, what steps have been taken as the Customs Department to stop cocaine entering the country along with sugar or other goods.
Based on the orders of the Director General of Customs, we remained in those areas for a long time and we checked all the containers. Then there was a complaint from the sugar importers saying that they need to provide these goods to the people. We loosened our restrictions and began to only check selected containers. As Sri Lanka Customs, we accept the responsibility. Examination of all these containers is not practical. We do use technology, but there are shortcomings. We use a scanner which has to be switched off for 2 hours after being used for just 4. If we don't spot anything, there is a possibility that such things may get out.
Although statements were made that the sugar importers requested the containers to be cleared quickly in order to prevent a shortage of sugar in the market, according to adverts published on several daily newspapers, there are preparations to release locally produced sugar into the market. This advert provides information for individuals or companies who are capable of buying over 200 tons of sugar for cash.
Responding to journalists in Kegol today, Minister Kabir Hashim shared these views on the national program to eradicate drugs.
If you consider my district, which is the district of Kegaul, we have not been able to achieve success at the grassroots level. We need the assistance of the police as well as the civil society. During the previous regime, it was a number of politicians who controlled the drug trade in the villages. That mafia functions to this day, and these are the same members who represent the joint opposition. We have discussed these issues with the cabinet and the president. If we ever hope to control this, we need more help from the police. The National Book Exhibition organised by the Colombo Municipal Council was declared open by Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe this morning.
This year marks the 10th year of the exhibition, which is organised by the Colombo Municipal Council. It will be held until the 27th of this month.
We formed this national government under the guidance of President Maithripala Sirisena in a bid to resolve the many issues that exist across the country at present. On one hand, there was a garbage dump in Colombo and the issue of proper waste management. On the other hand is the national debt crisis. Then there is the issue concerning the farmlands. When you look at the Colombo garbage dump, you realize that there are a number of such dumps. That is why we formed the national government, so that we can solve issues that no single party government can achieve. Even though it is hard, we have decided to strive ahead with the hope of permanently solving these issues. The foreign loans obtained by the government at the end of 2014 stood at 7,391 billion rupees. At the end of 2016, public debt stood at 9,388 billion rupees. However, according to the report of the Auditor General, the public debt at the end of 2016 is 9,865 billion rupees.
This week, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry has revealed further shocking information at the highest level in the Bondgate scandal.
It was revealed that other parties joined in a pattern of transactions that took place between Perpetual Treasuries Limited and the Employees Provident Fund, with Pan Asia Banking Corporation acting as an intermediary. The total volume of government securities sold to the EPF by former chairman of PABC Nimal Pereira and NP Capital using PABC as an intermediary in 15 transactions was 8.5 billion rupees. Richie Dias, the Deputy General Manager of Pan Asia Banking Corporation, believed market rates were rigged and manipulated. This is yet another revelation in the nearly 6 months of evidence being revealed by the witnesses. In the US, the Wells Fargo fraud scandal came under several investigations, including a Senate Banking Committee hearing led by Senator Elizabeth Warren. The senator's robust questioning of the CEO, John Stumpf, left no room for doubt as to where responsibility lies.
Since this massive years-long scam came to light, you have said repeatedly, quote, "I am accountable." But what have you actually done to hold yourself accountable? Have you resigned as CEO or chairman of Wells Fargo?
The board, I serve at
Have you resigned?
No, I've not.
All right. Have you returned one nickel of the millions of dollars that you were paid while this scam was going on?
Well, first of all, this was by 1% of our people.
That's not my question. My question is about responsibility. Have you returned one nickel of the millions of dollars that you were paid while this scam was going on?
The board will take care of that.
Have you returned one nickel of the money you earned while this scam was going on?
And the board will do...
I will take that as a no then. You haven't fired a single senior executive. Instead, evidently, your definition of accountable is to push the blame to your low-level employees who don't have the money for a fancy PR firm to defend themselves. It's gutless leadership.
The Bondgate scandal came to light in 2015. There have been 2 COPE investigations and absolutely no action was taken on those responsible. The Auditor General estimated that the spot losses from the 2 auctions alone was almost 2 billion rupees, with the losses incurred by the EPF in the secondary market still not calculated. Next week, the Presidential Commission of Inquiry into the massive scandal involving losses to the taxpayer continues into its 74th day.
United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has congratulated the Sri Lankan government for setting up the Office of Missing Persons.
Issuing a statement, the UN Secretary-General said the establishment of the Office of Missing Persons is an important step for all Sri Lankans who are still looking for the truth about their loved ones. The statement said that the UN looks forward to the Office of Missing Persons becoming operational as soon as possible, starting with the appointment of independent commissioners. The UN has also encouraged the government of Sri Lanka to adopt policies to promote political reconciliation and a credible accountability process for allegations of wartime violations of international human rights and humanitarian law. Releasing its annual Human Rights Report for 2016, the UK Foreign and Commonwealth Office has welcomed the encouraging steps towards reconciliation taken by the Sri Lankan government in establishing the Office of Missing Persons. The report calls on the government to repeal the Prevention of Terrorism Act and to draft new counter-terrorism legislation in line with international human rights standards. The report also recognises the need for further development of the police force in order to reduce the risk of human rights violations, including torture, and improving public confidence in the rule of law.
Newsfirst Sonali Vanigabaduge spoke to Attorney-at-Law Bhavani Fonseca from the Centre for Policy Alternatives regarding the Office of Missing Persons Act.
Does the Office on Missing Persons have an actual office?
No, it doesn't have an actual office unless the government is keeping that information in secret. But it cannot have an office without actually getting it operationalized, getting it assigned. So that's the first step. Now it's to recruit staff, to hire the commissioners. So that goes through a process, and finding a physical space that can actually start working.
Now, since the 1990s, actually, we've seen numerous commissions being appointed. There was the LLRC, there was the Udalagama Commission, the Paranagama Commission for Missing Persons. How is this Office on Missing Persons going to be different from the rest?
So the presidential commissions of inquiry that you referred to were appointed by different presidents, successive governments appointed commissions, and that was for a very specific period, very specific mandate. Sure. This would be the first permanent independent office to investigate and inquire into enforced disappearances and missing. So the difference is this is a permanent office. The time lapses doesn't happen like commissions of inquiry. This will continue.
It's interesting to note that the Act says that the Office on Missing Persons will have investigative powers. Can you elaborate a bit on this?
So there is this question, what are the powers of the Office for Missing Persons? And there's also this misconception that it is actually going to adjudicate. It doesn't. It's only to investigate. It's to find out what happened to a missing person, to a person who's been disappeared, and to establish the facts of that disappearance, or the facts of a person, why that person went missing and where the person is. So it cannot take any steps further to just investigating.
Still in local news, convening a media briefing today, Minister of Finance Mangala Samaraveera says that the tax bill will be taken up for debate by the third week of August in Parliament and says it should be implemented by the next tax year.
The idea is that everybody should pay tax. I mean, that we are not ashamed to say, if we earn, we should pay tax. That's how you create a just society. But this idea that we are taxing the poor is completely wrong. This is a canard being spent by the joint opposition. In fact, the tax-free allowance has been increased from 500,000 rupees to more than 1.2 million rupees. So that's absolute nonsense and absolute canard, because the tax-free allowance has gone up. So if we are receiving salaries of up to 100,000 rupees a month, right, it's tax-free. You compare the tax regime in Sri Lanka proposed by this bill with any country in the region, including Singapore, right? The tax rates that we are proposing here are lower, they are fair, but we want to make sure that everybody who is supposed to pay taxes will pay taxes so that others will have it.
We succeed in widening the the tax net, then of course then we can look at bringing down the VAT and other indirect taxes, which has become a huge burden on the people. But to do so, we have to ensure that all people who need to pay taxes will pay tax. I think there's nothing wrong. In fact, one of my ambitions is even to introduce a tax number for every citizen over 18 years. Yes, I think the tax concessions are also, I agree, can be a heavy burden on the economy. So we will look at new ways of dealing with the problem, because on one hand, while it is a heavy burden on the economy, we also have to find ways and means to ensure that the members of parliament and other officials of the government are also looked after in the sense of giving them what is necessary to do their job efficiently.
A video conference on the second review of the extended fund facility provided by the IMF was held in Colombo today. Views were expressed on the Inland Revenue Bill and the way forward for Sri Lanka.
Inland Revenue Act Bill has been submitted to Parliament, and we very much welcome the development. And as we have been saying repeatedly, legislation and implementation of new income tax law will provide a solid foundation for continuing fiscal consolidation, including by making tax system more efficient and equitable. Going forward, next challenges or goal to pursue will be to make sure that further progress is made in structural reform, which again will strengthen the platform for ongoing further medium-term fiscal consolidation. And greater exchange rate flexibility will be helpful, not only in facilitating accumulation of reserves, but more broadly in strengthening external resilience of Sri Lankan economy.
Views were also expressed on the contents of the extended fund facility.
During the program discussion, many things can be done, but it is not the intention of the program to try to touch upon every aspect of the economy. Agreement has been made on relatively important things which will be supported by the program. In SOEs, statement of corporate intent was one, and another was energy pricing. And the third one, as you know, was restructuring of Sri Lankan Airlines. On the Sri Lankan Airlines, restructuring plan has been adopted and is being implemented by the government.
Speaking at an event that was held in Colombo yesterday, the German ambassador to Sri Lanka, Jean Rode, also spoke on the Sri Lankan tax reforms.
So what is very important, in most developed countries you have a tax system which is quite different from the Sri Lankan. Here 80% is coming, I think, from indirect taxes or levies.
Yes.
And he wants to change it into a 60-40 direct-indirect, which is, I think, the case for most other countries. And we, of course, support the government in that.
Former Army Commander Minister Sarath Fonseca has reacted to allegations made against him by MP Wimal Weerawansa during a media briefing held yesterday.
These 11 youth were considered deceased. How were they arrested? Navy Sampath is someone who was taken into custody while in the possession of NICs which belong to several of these youth who were said to have been abducted. Navy Commander Karan Nagoda is the one who filed the complaint against Navy Sampath or Sampath Munasinghe. Investigations are launched based on this complaint. Navy Sampath deserted the army after this complaint and goes to Sarath Fonseca and tells him that he was ordered by Karan Nagoda and he deserted because he was against it. Fonseca believes this and states that there's a false charge against him. Fonseca is the one who saved Navy Sampath from this issue.
ඊට පස්සේ සරත් පොන්සේක මහත්තයා නේවි සම්පත්ත මේ ප්‍රශ්نين බේරලා දුන්නා.
නේවි සම්පත්ත තිබුණේ
එවකට හිටපු නායික හමුදාපති ගැන එක්ක පුද්ගලික ප්‍රශ්නයක්.
Navy Sampath had a personal dispute with the then Navy commander. He has been linked inadvertently to some of the commander's factions and he went into hiding because they were trying to kill him. That is the background story. He came and reported to me because at that time the commander and I had opposing views. What I did was I called the Secretary of Defence and handed him over to the CID. We have never committed cowardly or thuggish acts like Vimal Veeravansa and we will never commit such actions in the future as well. Vimal Veeravansa complains that other people stink while he himself is covered in excrement.
විමල් වීරවංශ එයා ඇඟ පුරාම අර මල පහ ගාගෙන එයා අනිත් අයට කියනවා ගඳයි කියලා.
Speaking at a meeting held yesterday, Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneshwaran, suggested a number of remedial measures for the drought being experienced in the north.
It is our desire that immediate steps be allowed to be taken by the Provincial Council, ably assisted by the Line Ministry, to bring relief to our people. Firstly, the lack of adequate bowsers has been a severe problem. We need to give drinking water to people in affected areas. Secondly, at least 500 water tanks with stands need to be installed to allow affected people to obtain drinking water from them. Thirdly, may I suggest adequate payment of compensation to farmers affected by the drought. Even the fishermen who are unable to fish due to the lagoons drying up must be helped. Fourthly, it is vital that wells which provide drinking water presently held in the custody of the armed services be immediately handed back to the Pradeshya Sabhas. Fifthly, there is an urgent need to rehabilitate and repair the several tanks and wells in the northern province. Sixthly, there is an urgent necessity to make it compulsory to store rainwater during rainy days. We need to prepare the necessary statute in this regard, no doubt. It is appropriate that we formulate a 5-year plan to deal with all aspects of drought and flood.
The foundation stone for a new cultural centre in the Suryavava town was laid today by Minister of Housing and Construction, Sajith Premadasa.
A total of 28 million rupees is to be spent on the project. Minister S.B. Navino was also present at the occasion.
Mahinda Rajapaksa's faction says that they are in the Constitutional Assembly. However, his right hand, Vimal Veeravansa, has left the Constitutional Assembly along with a number of MPs. MP Roshan Ranasinghe from Polonnaruwa says that he will not attend meetings of the joint opposition because GLP-RIS is interfering in activities in Polonnaruwa.
GLP-RIS මහත්තයා ගිහිලා ඇඟිලි ගහනවලු පොළොන්නරු දිස්ත්‍රික්කයේ වැඩ කටයුතු වලට.
මුළු රටේම නැතිපරි අයට නිවසක් ලබා දීමේ වගකීමත්.
As the Minister of Housing, Sajith Premadasa has stepped forward to provide a roof over everyone's head and also to assist in times of disaster situations. An arrest warrant has been issued for the convener of the Medical Students Activists Committee, Ryan Jayalath. The warrant is for causing damage to the property of the Ministry of Health. Now, yesterday, an argument broke out when police made an attempt to arrest Ryan Jayalath. The police spokesperson said that Senior DIG of the Western Province, Nandan Munasinghe, has been instructed to submit a report on the police actions relating to the incident. If a warrant has been issued by court against an individual, it is the responsibility of the police to arrest that person. If anyone protects a warrantee that prevents the arrest, this is a punishable offence under the Penal Code of Sri Lanka. In addition to that, if anyone behaves in a manner that obstructs the police from arresting a warrantee, that too is an offence. Therefore, if anyone acts in a manner that obstructs the arrests and gives reasons to prevent the arrest of a warrantee, that too is an action of violation to the Penal Code of Sri Lanka.
The Finance Minister commented on the matter as well.
I phoned the IGP and inquired into this incident. I see this as a conspiracy to bring disrepute to the police. Yesterday, the President signed the Gazette on the Office of Missing Persons. An incident like this taking place on the very same day cannot be a coincidence. The IGP has promised to inquire into the matter and to take the relevant action.
Dengue claimed the life of another child today. A 6-year-old girl who was a resident of Dehiwala was the latest dengue victim.
Her name was Dahamsa Pereira. She had been admitted to the Kalubowila Teaching Hospital on the 15th of this month after contracting dengue.
එදාම බෙහෙත් ගන්න ගියාම අරගත්ත බෙහෙත් ඒවට අඩුන්නේ නැහැ. එදාම බ්ලඩ් කවුන්ට් එක බැලුවා.
Senior DIG of Police Lalit Jayasinghe, who is in remand custody, has been suspended from the Sri Lanka Police Department.
Chairman of the Police Commission P. Manatunga said the Commission made this decision when they convened yesterday. The Criminal Investigations Department arrested Lalit Jayasinghe on the 15th of this month on charges of aiding a suspect of the Vidya Sivadoganathan homicide case escape. He was further remanded until the 25th of this month after he was produced before the Kites Magistrates Court.
UNP MP S.M. Marika, speaking at the Gothatua Mahavidyalaya today, commented on the era before good governance.
The people who voted for the good governance government are enraged at times. Nevertheless, they do not want to revive the white van culture, the era of extortion, or the era of assassinating journalists or burning down media institutions. However, the issues we have is, how are we to rescue the people from the debt burden and implement development drives? Just because people blame the government, they don't want the former administration back.
Sri Lankan spinner Rangana Herath has been appointed as the captain for the first test against India, as Dinesh Chandimal has been hospitalized following a diagnosis of pneumonia this morning. The first test between Sri Lanka and India will commence on the 26th of July.
Well, on that note, we wrap up tonight's edition of Primetime News. It was a pleasure having you with us. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Krishnan Devasagayam.
And I'm Rahna Farooq. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant night.